Thank
you, Mr. Speaker. Nowhere in the country could offer a better home to the DEFRA than Melton Mowbray. Now, I could finish my speech there, but I suspect the Minister would like me to make my case in a little more detail. My debate this evening is a straightforward one. I am proud that our government is levelling up our country, but rural areas need levelling up too. And if the Department for the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs won't take up a rural home, then I ask the Minister, who will? To make my case, I'd like to start by inviting you to learn more about the wonderful town of Melton Mowbray. We are located in the very heart of the country. Our market town is surrounded by the Vale of Belvoir and the welcoming villages of Melton. And when one thinks of England's green and pleasant lands, one must surely be thinking of our wonderful area, and not perhaps Lancashire, as the Speaker might prefer. Our history is long and fascinating, and I'll share some of the stories of our town with you today, because they make the case that not only is food the food of our nation and our blood, we are no ordinary market town. Our livestock market, of which I will speak much today, is mentioned in the Domesday Book dating back to 1085. A millennium on, throughout the week, farmers come from as far as Cornwall and Scotland to do trade at Melton Mowbray Market. And visitors enjoying great hospitality in Melton is nothing new. Because since the Middle Ages, it is Melton where royalty have come to play and to relax. Indeed, in the last 850 years, 16 kings and 2 queens have visited Melton. Even the most infamous of kings has a link to our town. For in 1540, as part of his annulment agreement with Anne of Cleves, King Henry VIII gave his former wife a stunning house in the centre of our town, which had previously been owned by Thomas Cromwell and the church before that. Now, Mr. Speaker, that house is now a phenomenal pub, and you and the Minister be most welcome to come enjoy a phenomenal food and drink there one day. Now, there's also no question that we are famous for 2 things in particular. The one and only Melton Mowbray pork pie and Stilton cheese, which was invented in Little Dalby and Wymondham villages in Melton Borough in 1710. But until recently, I didn't know that we can lay claim to perhaps the most English of all pastimes, that great thing, the afternoon tea. In 1842, the 7th Duchess of Bedford was staying with the Duke and Duchess of Rutland at Belvoir Castle. Bored between lunch and dinner, she ordered tea, sandwiches, buns and cakes at 5 o'clock. When she returned to London from her visit, she took the custom with her, and so afternoon tea was born. Keeping on the aristocratic theme, Melton Mowbray is also where the phrase "paint the town red" originates. In 1837, an eccentric aristocrat by the name of Henry de la Pur Beresford turned up the toll gate at Thorpe End and in his extreme state of inebriation refused to pay the toll to enter the town. Having been challenged over his refusal, he came across a pot of red paint and proceeded to paint the toll keeper, a local constable, and a good deal of the town red. Now, as these wonderful stories show, the 2 constants in our history are our agricultural and culinary way of life and the extraordinary people that make up our town and borough. Now, Mr. Speaker, Melton Mowbray is a uniquely wonderful, welcoming and generous place. It is a place alive with British history, traditions and values, and a people proud to feed our country. And I will speak much of our farming heritage this evening. But Meltonians, Mr. Speaker, are honest and fair people, full of common sense and deeply passionate about our communities and caring for our neighbours. I bring forward this debate today because on my election, I promised to give the people of Melton peace of mind, to create opportunity for us and to give our town every chance to succeed, to deliver an economy locally that raises the standards of living for everybody, a fair economy which guarantees that everyone matters and no one is left behind. But Melton Mowbray has been left behind, like much of the East Midlands. And through today's debate and by working with the government, I hope to change that. And therefore tonight, I will make the case that DEFRA should open an office in Melton Mowbray, because Melton deserves the chance to succeed. Our town has been identified by the government as a town ready for levelling up and investment. We're a 2-tier priority area in the Levelling Up Fund. And even though we have a strong manufacturing base, our average wages are lower than national average and not in line with house prices. We are the key centre for regeneration growth in the whole of Leicester and Leicestershire, and yet too often we lose out. Because the East Midlands has the lowest levels of public investment of any region in the United Kingdom. Because of the way the local government funding formula is calculated, both Leicestershire and Rutland suffer from underinvestment as rural areas, despite the fact that it costs so much more to deliver those services in rural areas. For example, if Leicestershire County Council funded the same as Surrey, for example, it would have an additional 104 million to support the people of Leicestershire. The East Midlands also hosts only 5% of the civil service. That is the lowest in the country apart from Northern Ireland. And only 1% of those are at the senior civil service level, again the lowest outside of Northern Ireland. Now, too often policy is detached from our communities and from the industries and people that our civil service regulates and make policy for. It's quite clear that the East Midlands does not have a loud enough voice in policy making. And it's against this backdrop that I'm pushing for a DEFRA office in the borough of Melton. Because on every score, this project is right for the Places for Growth programme, right for the country, and it goes without saying right for East Midlands and right for Melton. But I would argue, Mr. Speaker, that DEFRA needs Melton Mowbray too. Because we need to make rural policy in our agricultural heartlands, not just on Marsham Street surrounded by the white buildings of Westminster. We shouldn't be reliant on policy official field visits to see our incredible countryside and meet with farmers and environmentalists. Surely we want DEFRA officials working from offices where when they look out their window, they see a thriving breeding sheep auction as they reflect on sheep welfare or biodiversity or environmental management, where they can pick up their lunch in the farmers market or town food stalls and meet workers from food factories and local cafes and shops where green fields abound. Now, I've heard it said that 2 cities are in contention for DEFRA's office outside of London. And I would urge the Minister to consider the message it sends when even our rural policy is set from cities. Now, DEFRA plays a huge role in setting our agricultural and food policy for the entirety of the UK. So surely there's nowhere better to call home than the rural capital of food. This government believes that putting policymakers closer to the experience of farmers, food makers and land stewards will create a more joined up farm to fork environment for policy development and its real world impact. And I agree. So let me set out our offer. We are an agricultural powerhouse and major food production economy. Our countryside in Rutland and Melton alone has over 100 farms of every type: arable, sheep, pig, poultry, beef and even bison. Nearby Rutland is a major centre for bird life and hosts the annual Glastonbury of birdlife festivals. Melton is home to one of the oldest and largest town centre livestock markets in the country, with everything from sale from alpacas to sheep to cows to peacocks to horses, depending on the market that day. And we also host the National Traditional and Native Breed Show. Now, in Melton, we have a significantly higher than national average food and drink related manufacturing employment. About 3,000 people are employed in the sector in 2017. So that's 2/3 of our manufacturing is food related. And Melton was also one of the first food enterprise zones in the UK. Now, you'll need to forgive me for attempting to strike awe in the Minister with my exhaustive list, but here are some of the home to household brands and outstanding food producers that Melton is home to. Samworth Brothers, which owns and produces Gink's Pasties, Saureen, Melton Mowbray Pork Pies. It owns the West Cornwall Pasty Companies and was one of the largest sandwich providers for supermarkets in the UK. And I refer members to my register of interest. Mars Pet Food, which owns Pedigree, Whiskers, Royal Canine, and its Waltham Pet Care Science Institute, which is the UK's leading scientific authority on pet nutrition. Viva Fruit Farms, which makes the best elderflower press in the world and would be happy to stock Parliament at any time. The famous Long Clawson Dairy, which makes outstanding cheeses like Stilton and Rutland Red and many more. And Arla Factor making even more standout cheeses. Round Corner Brewing, a brewery that's won more global gold medals for its beer than any other brewery in the world over the last 3 years, including Best Lager in 2019. I think perhaps that might pique the Speaker's attention. We also have Brenterby Gin, which is an incredible distillery making outstanding award-winning gins and who stepped up during the pandemic and rolled out sanitizer for free for care homes across Melton. Nice Pies, Brockleby Pies, the first Gloucester Dentro Cider House. We're even the leading producers of paneer cheese and tofu for the Japanese restaurant market. Food is in our blood and food heritage is who we are. Melton is the rural capital of food, and our town hosts the National Pie Awards, the largest cheese fair in England, which is concluded this week, a chocolate festival, the East Midlands Food Festival. Civil servants would find themselves never short of the highest quality food celebrations. But our offer also extends beyond our existing farming economy. If DEFRA were to open an office in Melton, we could offer the educational opportunities to support civil servants. Brooksby Melton College in Melton is an exceptional specialist land-based college with an agri-tech centre, commercial farm, rural catering centre and even a quarry. It is an outstanding college. Nearby, we have Loughborough University, which could offer agriculture and related science courses for policy officials to undertake. And we have Nottingham University not that far away with Sutton Bollington campus for veterinary sciences, one of the leading centres of veterinary medicine in the UK. But not only does Melton Mowbray have a vibrant food manufacturing and agriculture economy and educational offer, we also have the Vale of Belvoir, which was raised in the Landscapes Review as a potential area of outstanding natural beauty. We are a leading light for diversification of farming and environmental stewardship. We've one of the largest abattoirs in the country. We have an area rich in environmental leadership. And it is little known that it is in my constituency that Sir David Attenborough developed his love of fossils. So there is much to be explored, and we cover many of DEFRA's policy areas. But it's not just policy terms where Melton excels. Let me get down to brass tacks, the practicalities of our offer. We do offer an unbeatable location because Melton lies in the centre of the country and meets the connectivity, space and logistical needs that the government has outlined to me. And I'd also like to thank in particular the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Lord Agnew and the Secretary of State for DEFRA for the wise words and words of encouragement they've given me on this subject. Now, by car, Melton is within 2.5 hours of 80% of the country. It's just off the A1 within easy access to the M1. It's 20 minutes to Loughborough, 25 minutes to Leicester, 40 minutes to Nottingham and 40 to Peterborough. By train, London's only an hour and a half away. Birmingham, an hour. Cambridge, an hour and a half. We have East Midlands Airport 30 minutes away and Stansted in Birmingham. So you can go anywhere you need to get to. But not only that, but Melton offers an ideal place to work for people across 6 different counties. I find it hard to believe that anywhere else in the country could offer employment to people from that many counties. Leicestershire, Nottinghamshire, Lincolnshire, Rutland, Northamptonshire, Cambridgeshire are all within striking distance. Some would even argue Derbyshire if I can extend to 7 counties. This is an opportunity to create rural jobs for rural people. And there are many hundreds of rural villages within a 30-minute drive of Melton Mowbray across Leicestershire, Nottinghamshire, Rutland and Lincolnshire. Indeed, I represent almost 160 villages in Rutland and Melton alone, all of whom are looking for high-quality rural jobs close to home. And there is also a semicircle of nearby cities which already host civil service offices, so the perfect opportunity for civil servants to go between different departments and gain skills. So we are ideally located, but we even have office space ready to go and be occupied. Both Melton Borough Council and Pera Business Park could home between 500 and 2,500 civil servants almost immediately. Pera has 129,000 square feet already ready, and they will design the office space around the civil service needs. Both these sites are in the centre of our town. They overlook the livestock market, the town market and the train station. I also think it's important that the home of DEFRA's new office offers an outstanding quality of life to civil servants and policymakers. Now, in 2020, the Sunday Times announced that Melton Mowbray was one of the best places to live in the whole of the UK. So you'll have to forgive me if I take up the challenge of listing as many of those as I can, as quickly as I can. So in Melton, we have hundreds of outstanding pubs, including the Anne of Cleves, the Stag and Hounds in Borough on the Hill, and nearby in Rutland, we have this year's best pub in the entire country, the Olive Branch in Clipsham. We have Twin Lakes, a wonderful children's theme park that my son adores, excellent state and independent schools, a thriving local market in our town, and amazing independent shops like Luna Rain. We have the vintage classic car nights from Fridays, the award-winning Kettleby Lakes, Ragdale Hall, one of the best spas in the country, and at some point I will make it there, Mr. Speaker, an Iron Age hill fort in Borough on the Hill, Belvoir Castle, where The Crown is filmed, which has an incredible diary of events from fireworks competitions to reenactments of the Civil War and a fabulous shopping and dining offer at the engine rooms. We have 140 acres of lakes and trails and children's play areas right in the centre of Melton Country Park. The standout Fernley's Farm ice cream, which people travel for miles to enjoy. Vine Farm Dairy's milkshake, which is secretly stocked with amazing cakes that I'm sure have no calories in them at all. Phenomenal garden centres like Gates, because we all know the British people love a good garden centre. Melton Theatre with incredible panto, which when it reopens, and fantastic sports facilities for all the family, from flying across the sky through to the 2 new 3G football pitches being built. And don't worry, Mr. Speaker, I'm confident that the Pork Pie Army at Melton Town Football Club is always looking for more fans and would welcome civil servants heartily. And of course, we have nearby Rutland offering incredible outdoor sports on the famous Rutland Water. Now, these are just some of the things that saw Melton voted the happiest place to live in Leicestershire, with life satisfaction levels at an all-time high. And there are so many more amazing businesses and people that I wish I could mention. But as you can see, Melton would be delighted and well equipped to keep the DEFRA team filled and fueled with cheese, pork pies, beer, gin, outstanding food and drink, alongside the most beautiful countryside in our country, and outstanding quality of life and some of the warmest people in our country. Now, Mr. Speaker, when I proposed a potential move to Melton, I could never have expected the extraordinary support and outpouring from the community and every corner of the community. Institutions and people from every walk of life, from our borough council to farmers to businesses to local religious leaders, all of them stepped forward and said, yes, this is the opportunity for Melton. This is the right one. We would not ask for any other government department to come to Melton, but DEFRA is in our blood. It is the right thing to come to us. I also want to pay tribute to all those MPs who would have come to the chamber this evening if I'd been able to join you in person, but unfortunately I was pinged by that pesky app. In particular, my honourable friends, the members for Loughborough, Rushcliffe, Bosworth, Charnwood, Grantham and Stamford, who have all stood behind this proposal and agree that it would bring jobs for their residents. They recognise that the East Midlands would benefit from DEFRA coming to Melton. They want those jobs, they know it makes sense, and it would offer opportunities for their areas too. Now, for too long, Mr. Speaker, government departments have been detached from those they seek to represent, support and regulate, and that is what our government has set out to change. By opening an office in Melton, DEFRA will have the chance to be closer than ever before to every aspect of their work. I will recognise perhaps not fishing. The Secretary of State for DEFRA can make a pitch to open an office down in Cornwall or in Scotland. I will fully accept that, alongside Melton Mowbray being the core hub outside of London. Policymakers will be able to work in the most beautiful part of the country in a wonderful town with the Vale of Belvoir and Rutland on their doorstep. And they will do so with the full backing of their local community behind them. If we're trying to connect parts of the country and government in ways that augment government's ability to develop policy while boosting local economic growth, there is simply nowhere better for DEFRA to find a new home than Melton Borough. Because the people of Melton need these jobs. They need policy roles. We are experts in agriculture, but we don't have the sort of policy roles this job would bring in our community. We have the senior people who want to find senior roles, but they just don't exist, and this could provide that. The people of Melton are welcoming and generous people, and I know they're waiting with open arms to offer a new home for the hardworking members of our civil service. The people of Melton are waiting to do their part in this programme of national renewal. They are waiting to offer DEFRA a new home. They are waiting to take up the employment opportunities it would bring. They are waiting for this to transform our town. And they are waiting to see rural policy made from the rural heart of our nation. And they are waiting for the government to say yes. I very much hope the Minister will visit. Mr. Speaker, I hope that you will visit and you'll see what amazing our potential, our wonderful town holds and the home it could offer to the department and employees alike. The people of Melton are offering an open hand, and I hope the government will step forward and, in taking their hand, revolutionise rural policy making in our country and prove that this government will not just level up cities, but our rural communities as well. And that starts at Melton Mowbray. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Can I just say, a very passionate speech, and how could I not take up that offer to visit? Just to say Hanley's, Bowen's and Old Pies in Chorley might just give you a little run for the money, and I certainly know Cuckoo Gin and Rivington beers will be there with it. But I want to hear from the Minister. I think the case has been very well put. Minister.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I feel a trip coming on, perhaps a joint, perhaps a duo, don't you? Anyway, and I must congratulate my honourable friend from Rutland and Melton on securing this debate and making such an impressive case for her constituency and indeed speaking up for her constituents. She's such a champion. She's a great voice in this place. I'm actually genuinely sorry that she's not here in person tonight, Mr. Speaker, but we know the reasoning for that. But she's no less passionate for being on the screen. And I do welcome this suggestion of Melton Mowbray being a possible location for DEFRA, and I'm very grateful for her proposals. And what a rosy picture she paints of Melton Mowbray, rivalling, I might say, Mr. Speaker, even Chorley in Lancashire and even Taunton Dean in Somerset. And there's no doubting that Melton Mowbray is a hub for both agriculture and food production. I mean, she lists a huge range of products. Of course, the famous pork pies and Stilton, and I must say I'm rather partial to a bit of Stilton myself, Mr. Speaker. And I didn't realise, though, that this is where afternoon tea was conceived. Similarly, there's such a list of mouth-watering food businesses there. I might say I'm slightly fearful for the waistlines of any future DEFRA staff. So I think we'd have to think carefully about that. Bring in some exercise regimes alongside. But I do know that this is something my honourable friend has already raised with the Secretary of State. So she's leaving no stone or pork pie unturned. And anyway, the government has committed to moving 22,000 civil servants out of London by 2030. It's under our Places for Growth programme, as I'm sure she knows. And this is an important part of our plans to level up all parts of the country. And she's touched on levelling up quite clearly. And now, the DEFRA group itself has a clear purpose to safeguard and enhance our natural environment, support our food, farming, fisheries and forestry industries, sustain rural communities and protect against flooding, animal and plant diseases and other natural threats. So this means our work is truly nationwide, maintaining flood defences, for example, from Skegness to Totnes, visiting farms from Malvern to Melton, protecting our critical national infrastructure and improving our rural and urban environments in all quarters of the country. Now, DEFRA is actually already highly geographically dispersed due to our operating model, and our UK-wide footprint enables close proximity of our customers and stakeholders and underpins our emergency response role. And the DEFRA group has 200 locations across the country, so I think she'll agree that is a significant number. And 85% of DEFRA staff are already based outside of London. And all of our arm's-length bodies are headquartered outside of London and are deliberately rooted in places where they are close to the communities we serve and accessible to local labour markets with the skills we need. I'm sure she'll be aware that the new Office for Environmental Protection has just been located in Worcester, and which is exactly the sort of rural place I believe my honourable friend is raising the case for, and the proximity to the correct and most useful kind of skilled labour force was one of the key things that made that a suitable place. Obviously there were others, had to tick all the right boxes, but that was one of the issues, and she does mention that. We have an opportunity now to further strengthen our connection with communities across the country, supporting the levelling up agenda by having more staff outside of London. Now, the East Midlands is an important area for DEFRA and our delivery bodies. We currently have over 1,200 staff in the region, representing the Environment Agency, Natural England, the Rural Payments Agency and the Animal and Plant Health Agency. And at present, there are 6 DEFRA sites within 30 miles of Melton Mowbray, namely in Leicester, Derby, Rothley, Sutton Bonington and 2 in Nottingham, together accommodating over 400 staff from our core department and delivery bodies. This provides a sound foundation on which to grow our presence in the area and potentially consider Melton Mowbray itself as a future location for expansion. Now, looking slightly further east, we have an even greater footprint across East Anglia, and this includes a cluster of key offices in Peterborough, soon to consolidate into the new government hub in Peterborough, and 2 of our delivery bodies, the Centre for Environment, Fisheries and Aquaculture Science and the Joint Nature Conservation Committee, are both headquartered in the east of England. DEFRA is committed to maintaining a strong presence in the East Midlands, and we're keen to explore opportunities to connect with our customers and communities in this region. Melton Mowbray is a key part of our rural economy and agricultural supply chain, as has been highlighted by my honourable friend, with assets including the Melton Agricultural College, numerous major food producers and the Food Enterprise Zone. And I'd also like to commend the work done by my right honourable friend with the APPG on GIs, of which, of course, Melton Mowbray is home to those two that have already been referenced, the world-famous pork pies and Stilton. And the people and businesses of Melton Mowbray are exactly the customers that DEFRA serves on a daily basis. So it is right to consider if there is more that could be done to bring more of DEFRA's public servants closer to communities that serve Melton Mowbray, or indeed places like Melton Mowbray. But of course, we must weigh up the value for money of office space available, local labour markets, proximity to stakeholders, along with the many other factors. The government is committed to making sure that all departments are looking beyond London, and DEFRA will play a leading role in their effort, and this particular effort, ensuring that we do our part to level up all parts of the country. I do believe she makes a very sound point, meaning that levelling up really does need to include rural towns as well. I come from an area not dissimilar, and I think that is a very important point that she makes. She also makes that attractive proposition of how lovely for staff to wander out in that amazing market town and see the livestock market in action. I've spent a great deal of time in livestock markets myself. My husband was an agricultural auctioneer, and there's something very unique about those places. So I was quite captivated by the picture she painted there about her livestock auction and the myriad things it sells. So I have asked my officials to include Melton Mowbray as a potential location for a new DEFRA office. It will be considered with all other options and subject to all the the usual disciplines in securing value for money and all the criteria that would have to fit the DEFRA operating model. But I think on that note, Mr. Speaker, I should conclude. I really do want to thank my honourable friend for her stellar performance up there on Zoom and her work to identify viable options for DEFRA in Melton Mowbray. And I really do look forward to discussing this